Oh, yes. Thank you.
There you go.
I was like,
I'm
oh,
terrible at
man.
forgetting that.
And I didn't have the permissions, or I was just going to do it, but it wouldn't let me. Anyway, I think that is such, those are very, that's such good feedback too, because it seems like the consistency aspect, just knowing that the proof of work log is there, and you are beholden to that, at least writing something, even if it's just in your brain. And let's say you go 360 days and you never write a thing, but you probably you did stay consistent and true to yourself, even though but even though you didn't write anything, like I think just knowing that the structure is there, like you're saying, holds you accountable on some level. Even if you never connected with your partner, even if you never wrote a thing, you probably would still do more focused work in that 360 days than you would have had you not had that structure in the background somewhere. Does that make sense?
No, it does. Yeah, it does, and it actually has turned out that way. So a bunch is coming in the brain. The journaling, though, I've actually done, but not natural in that. Like, so it's been on post-its, it's been on written, it's been on digital. Finally, like last week, I decided to kind of pull things together to make a logbook of it, because I was like, okay, this
Nice.
is paper scraps everywhere. And you'd actually even give them structure initially. We are like, look, fill the book, write 1, 2, 360, and put them in, but that didn't jive with me at the time, so I didn't do it. And then, but now I've got it set up with, with some Google Docs, and really it's working better. But it's been odd to kind of toy with that back and forth, and also toy with the, yeah, as I was mentioning before, just the guilt of not following exactly. Although I'm still writing things, it's not supreme quality every day in the writing, right? It's just kind of like, okay, there's stuff putting in, it's going in.
There's no expectations, right? It's like literally if you write one sentence and just say, I wrote something today, you could check off that you did something intentionally for your health process. I think that's really the key. Is it's kind of like meditation, right? Like I got scared off of meditation so many times because I had this weird expectation of what it was supposed to be, and I was scared of not reaching that expectation. And when I realized like all I have to do is sit down and not do anything for 2 minutes, it made it a lot more welcoming, right? If all you have to do is write something in your health log and that checks the box off, and the quality will vary, and you're going to probably battle with the consistency of writing something every day. But the battles and the tweaking and trying to find the right path for you is the point, right? The point
Yeah.
is not what you write necessarily. It's how do I work towards getting into a habit of writing? Do I find writing something down important? Is it valuable? And if I do, how do I make sure I engineer things so that I can do it as frequently as possible? So that I can gather data to look at down the road. And I think, yeah, journaling had a lot of resistance for me when I first started doing it. And now I look forward to it. But that point of like trying to build up that habit was so freaking hard. So I hear you.
Definitely. So it's there, but that consistency there, and as Ruth mentioned, just like the logging in the head, and now I'm transposing things to that log much better,
Awesome.
because I really was kind of sparsing it different ways. But like again, tested Freeleaf, tested the book, tested.
A
Now
lot
I'm
of
in
good
a full
experiments.
spreadsheet, and
And,
then the spreadsheet is now I have an X of everything going down. And that is actually what I was looking for, is just some kind of feedback of, yeah, okay, got that day, got that day, got that day, got that day.
Awesome.
And for me, that's
and
what kind
And just for the record, this is 3 years in, and I'm experiencing the exact same thing as you. I think when Nick and I have been talking about the process of natural learning and how like the guilt, it's funny you use the word guilt, because nobody had, like Nick was saying, like there's no expectation. But what I think the structure does is it creates a reflection of what you're doing for yourself. And for me, the guilt is like, well, I said that I wanted to be true to my word in this way. Like I wanted to keep the integrity of my word to have a movement practice or a meditation practice or cut Doritos out for a week or whatever it is that I wanted to do for my health. And the guilt comes in that there's a community, a logbook, this whole structure that holds a mirror to your own face, right? That says, I have been true to the integrity of what's happening inside my body, and that's great. Yay, I'm awesome. But if it's not, then it's like the mirror of, then you go back to the drawing board, like Nick always says, like ask yourself the why. Like, is it because you're receiving that influence from an external source, or is that something that you really crave for yourself? Or, the clarity, I think, like wrestling around with the logbook in the last 16 days, I'm really surprised at how like what a battle that is. I just am like, okay, logbook, just get down on the mat with me. We're going to do this. But now I'm just like you. I settled into 14 different systems, and then I'm like, okay, I have a system that could work, or maybe not in 10 days, but we'll adjust it then. But for this 10 days, it's working. Yeah. So I just want to tell you that your experience is resonating
I'm
with
not
me.
alone. Yeah, that's definitely.
Hello, friends. Ryan, Britt, Jeff,
Yeah, I didn't mean to
Melinda,
hijack the call.
Hugh. So I think I'm gonna dive into it. Start with a little welcome. I have a couple of things. I always try and go into these things and say to myself, like, I'm gonna try and talk as little as possible. But at the end of the day, I want to make sure I convey all the, like, I've gotten a lot of clarity recently about TFC and about what we're doing here. So I want to convey that because I think that will be helpful for everyone. So thanks everyone for being here. If you're listening to this and weren't able to show up, thanks for listening. Thank you all for your commitment to health. Health is hard work. And the fact that we've all sort of made this shared commitment towards the process of health, I think is not an insignificant thing. So thank you for your commitment to health. Thank you for co-creating this community together and sharing all your experiences, because that really is how we learn, right? We share each other's perspectives and we have meaningful conversations and meaningful disagreements. And that's how we all learn. So I think for me, this community gives me hope that people are actually interested in taking responsibility for their health. And it also inspires me every day when I see what everyone's doing, whether that's on Instagram or on Slack. And thank you, Ruth, for suggesting and organizing this call. And I think today is an opportunity for us to check in with each other. And also, like I said, I look forward to sharing sort of the clear path forward that I now see with the Foot Collective, in hopes that it gives everyone sort of a shared sense of clarity. So let's start with this notion of a new chapter for TFC. And I'll keep this brief, but I think this is important. So TFC as a company is kind of going through a metamorphosis and a refocusing of energy. So I want to share that with everyone. Our mission remains unchanged, and it's been kind of this way for a while. And that mission is to help people reclaim responsibility for their health, which is a very broad mission. And, speaking for myself, why is that important? Well, I think healthy people are the ones who change the world. Healthy people take care of the planet. Healthy people make the world better. And healthy people are kind to each other. And that's the kind of world I want to live in. I want to live in a world of healthy people. And the way that I take action to work towards that world is to make a commitment to my own personal health and to sharing what I know with people who are curious about learning, in hopes that it helps empower them to improve their own health. So that's our mission, to help people reclaim responsibility for their health. And that's sort of my motivation and sense of purpose in this work. So from that mission, we get into the how. How do we achieve that mission? And I think for me, the clarity has come in that we help people reclaim excellent health in two ways. Number one, by facilitating community. And number two, by providing tools. So we facilitate community through our social platforms like Mighty, Instagram, Facebook, with events, through Slack, with Instagram in particular. It's all going to be focused on health. So there's not going to be anything off-brand anymore, nothing controversial, because I think just focusing will make the Instagram more effective. So we facilitate community, and then we provide tools. And there's kind of two types of tools: physical tools, which are available at the store, and then digital tools, which the only two that are really our focus are the health protocol and the foot protocol. And protocol in our context is like a detailed plan, a framework for learning. So each protocol has we build experiences on each protocol. So the protocol is like, the best way to describe this is when you look at a website or like a really intuitive app, behind that interface that you interact with, there's code. The protocol would be the code, which very few people can read or care to read. And then on top of that protocol, we build an experience that is the interface to people. And what people it allows people to experience and to experience the protocol. And so the Foot Nerd experience and the Foot and Ankle Health Kit are sort of our two main projects. And so that's going to be our focus at TFC moving forward. So we facilitate community and we provide tools, physical tools from the store, and then digital tools in the form of the Foot Nerd experience and the Foot and Ankle Health Kit. And so I think that is our best way to sort of serve our community, whether that's the TFC community or our community at large. So yeah, those are kind of our focus. Any thoughts on that? Any questions? Input?
You're looking for input?
Yeah, just any thoughts. That's all I kind of wanted to say around that sort of topic. But I think in general, feedback is something that I don't get very much of. Well, I shouldn't say I don't get very much of, but people just giving raw, unfiltered feedback on that are part of this community, like from all the Foot Nerds. I'd love to hear people's thoughts on the idea of facilitating community and providing tools, and then thoughts on the tools that we're working on, and just in general, if anyone has thoughts, feel free to go. If not, I'll move on to sort of the next topic.
I would be kind of interested in that. So for all the evil draw that comes from a phone, it also provides positive emotions, if it will. Like, it's not, their phones are not good, but I do seem to like my phone. And so I don't like my phone, but that's what you get by it. Like,
it's a tool.
It's a tool.
And by the way, you're allowed to like your phone.
But what I found is with couple other courses that I've taken through the phone, like when they had apps and particularly prompts that came from the phone to do things, kept me quite more motivated with it. And like when we were just speaking about journaling before, I actually tied it into the phone to actually increase the, I guess, feedback from it, the joy of it, or just like tying it to something that's already pleasurable is finding it more useful. And within my community at work, I'm trying to find ways of building prompts through the phone. But I'm torn with this because at the same time, I'm then tying them to the phone even more, right? So it's a big balance in there. So on the one hand, TFC, if there was something that was app-based and prompting through the phone, I found quite a bit of consistency with things doing that. But then it's completely at odds with the detechnologizing of things. So I'm not really sure how to go.
Nick, can I answer that?
Yes, please do.
Okay, so Hugh, that's a very interesting subject about the phone. And I think when we were initially figuring out how we were going to go forward with this, I know that Nick can speak to the like technical app side of things, but what we really talked about was how the draw of the phone is confusing, right? Like, we are allowed to like our phones, and we are allowed to appreciate technology and all of the good stuff that comes from what we access, people and good feelings and stuff like that. But it is confusing in the sense that it's an addictive quality. There's an addictive quality in there that messes with our brain chemistry. So I think from my perspective, one of the reasons why, I mean, we want to try to delineate between like why are you on the phone? Like, you talk about it as a pleasurable experience, but we want to, like, at least the way I see it is like, I need there to be something that differentiates between what is my own brain chemistry and full pharmacopoeia in my brain and my body, and what is the addictive, like, magic button press of the dopamine squirt of the phone. And those can, I think, I'm not completely sure, but I'm pretty sure that if we tie those in, it kind of gets too muddy in the water that way. So I think that maybe that could help as a reason why to go back to the pen to paper or the Post-it notes, even if what it does is just create a clear impression of what's happening in your brain. Like, if I have 75 Post-it notes and 22 notebooks and it's not clear, then I know that I have to find clarity. Whereas the phone has a very sneaky way of making it appear that you've got your shit together in that way. You know what I mean? The prompts wise.
I think it's all about intentionality. Like, if we try and really make hard lines between what is traction, how am I intentionally using my phone for things that I want to do, right? That I'm purposely intending to do. And if you are really clear on what things you're using your phone for as a productive tool for things that you want to accomplish, then it's really easy to see the distractions, which are things that are outside of that circle of intention, right? It's really easy. If your intention of using your phone is to connect with others or to learn, well, it's really easy to identify when you're just mindlessly scrolling through Twitter or Instagram, right? But and it's not the phone. Our brains are not designed to handle what phones have created for us. They just aren't. And so I think step one is knowing that and admitting that no one is beyond the lure of the phone. And it's not about never getting lured in. It's about recognizing when you've been sucked in and bumping yourself out of that quicker. I think it's just a self-awareness exercise, not like, oh, I feel terrible because I just wasted an hour on Instagram. It's like, why? What made me gravitate to wanting to do this and just mindlessly scroll through there? And I think asking ourselves that question is the way we learn from it, right? Instead of just being on the Ferris wheel without any sense of control. So
one last thing I wanted to just mention about the phone is that we have them with us all the time. So I've been playing a lot in the last few years with like transitions between events in my day. Excuse me. So like if I have my phone with me all the time and everything that I utilize, like even if I have, like Nick is saying, like the best intentionality and I use my phone in the most productive way, the one thing that you might not be able to argue with is how it's so fluid in our lives that there's no transition between the phone and the events of the day. So like after breakfast, and I've noticed this with anxiety in my body lately, because I carry this freaking phone with me more than I want to, even though I'm really clear about how I want to use it. And so suddenly the walk becomes the movement practice, becomes the lunch date, becomes the meditation prompt, becomes the, oh, I forgot to get mayonnaise at the grocery store. And suddenly the day's gone by and it's been so fluid that you don't have a timeout between things. So I think not having the phone all the time and actually having to go to the laptop computer that's at your house, that's separate from your car and your, like having the division of actual physical events in your life and then a little time in between. Like I've been playing with trying to schedule in time between things like breakfast and brushing my teeth. Let's just take a minute, a breath to do the things separately without anything else. That's
well said. Let's so there's a couple new faces on this call to any of the other nerds who listen to this. So we got Hugh and we have Melinda. So I'd love for you both to, if you want, to just introduce yourselves. If there's 50 nerds that are going to watch this eventually, this is your chance to sort of digitally introduce yourself. It can be short, it can be brief, but maybe just say like who you are, what made you gravitate towards this community. And I would love to personally hear about your first impressions. You're sort of the maiden group going through this new 360-day framework that we've created. Every year we try and learn from the previous iteration of the Foot Nerd experience and say like, what feedback do we get? How do we implement that? How do we improve and evolve this offering for people who are ready to commit to health? How do we create a really powerful and effective way to point them in the right direction to make good use of the time that they've committed to health? So yeah, I'd love for you both to introduce yourselves and then give us any and all feedback that you've got of your experience so far.
Do you want to go first or I can go to Hugh?
I've been talking a bunch since I started, so how about it?
Perfect. Hi, I'm Melinda. I live in Montana with my husband and two small children, a 5-year-old and a 1-year-old, and we own a ski shop.
Cool.
I'm also a pre and postnatal exercise specialist. So my mind goes so much to the let's get the biomechanics, what's the anatomy, all that. And then this is making me do a lot more self work than I expected, which I was like, oh shit, I know it's something that I have to do, but that's the difficult part for me. I definitely go for the more mechanical. So this is something that I needed that I didn't even know. So I'm getting more structure in this. It's been a great experience so far. An hour a day can be challenging for me. It doesn't seem like it, but my kids are young and I homeschool and they're in my face a lot. And so I try and get up earlier and then they get up earlier, but I'm also trying to incorporate them more, like my 5-year-old. I was watching a video the other day and I had my headphones in, but then he was so interested in what I was doing and what I was learning. And he loves to learn so much. And it really made me stop and think how much we don't learn as adults. Like we just we just go in our regular day-to-day life. And when something comes up that we have to learn that's new, we don't always get as excited as a 5-year-old. And so it kind of got me back to, wow, the learning is cool. He was so excited. So it really got me excited again too.
Amazing. I think that, just to put a pin in that, I think we all have to build our own context about what that hour is, right? Like, say, for example, you spent an hour with your 5-year-old, fully present, no distractions, just tuning in and reflecting their energy and observing them. Like, I think that's an hour of health, right? If you intentionally say, I'm going to try and just be 100% present, and then I'll take a little note about how I just had an hour of full presence with my kid. To me, that's an hour on health, right? If there's a sense of mindfulness that you're doing it as a practice to be present, right? And like when I say we all have to build context for that hour, like maybe initially it's an hour by myself focused on learning something specific in the, in a lesson, but it can morph into like an hour walk or an hour play session with your kids. Maybe that's your hour of health. So I think everyone has to determine what that hour looks like and what that hour is, right? What counts as that hour? I think that's because it's really easy to trick ourselves into saying like, yeah, I did a workout, so I did my hour. And so I think as time goes on, we just find a better groove to make sure that spending that hour every day is not putting extra burden on us, is not taking us away from our families or from things that matter. But yeah, thank you for sharing that. And thanks for being part of this, because I think you saying that helps me reflect on even my life, right? And how like an hour, a purposeful hour, can sometimes seem really hard to find. But if it matters, we need to try and find that time. So thanks for sharing, and thanks for being here.
Thanks. Yeah, I will say that the movement experiments work really well with the kids too. I've been doing that a lot, like just move with them and they love it. So
awesome.
Thanks.
Cool. Hugh?
Sure. So my name's Hugh. I'm actually up in Canada, in Quebec. Kind of a funny thing, when I came into the course, I thought there'd be everyone from Ontario and Quebec, and it's not really how it's panning out. So we got friends all over the planet now.
Yeah.
So definitely. So what would I say to describe myself in that? So first off, I'd say, yeah, I'm a dad with 2 kids. My son's 4, my daughter's 8. And what you're describing, Melinda, totally resonating with that. Like initially, the idea of actually committing to an hour a day frightened me like very few things have. Like I was like, an hour? Like I'm like, I get a lot of stuff done, and get a lot of stuff not done, but it stays busy, like stuff moves. And I was like, an hour every day. Am I willing to even sign and say I'm gonna do that? And but I've been watching kind of the last couple of years of things go by with TFC, and I was like, you know what? Someday I got to get on that and just say, like, now's the time. Let's go. And so this year, timing worked out really as well or as poorly as any other time. And so we're like, okay, let's do it. Let's go in now. The edition's coming up. It seemed like there was more structure than before, and so I was like, that wasn't really a draw. I was like, man, I should have joined last year. But I was like, well, this will do it. This is a serious challenge, so let's go at it. And the biggest benefit I saw in there was that it was like a complete package. There's 5 pillars in there, and spreading that hour over 5 pillars really helps a lot and secured me into saying, okay, let's do it. Let's get in there. The movement with the kids has been wonderful. Like, they love it. You guys can't see, I'm in my basement here now, but like yesterday we had some crash mats set up on the stairs, and we were like sliding and somersaulting down the stairs.
Yes.
And a long time since I'd done that, but that was phenomenal. And the kids are into it. They're into just moving with me and stuff. And so that's really, really enjoyable, like very enjoyable. And it seems like I'm teaching them proper things, because that was part of the questioning actually getting into the course. Like, what was the draw? I was like, okay, he's 4, she's 8. What am I really going to teach them? Because they're going to just absorb part of what I do and part of what I don't even want to teach them. So how do you set it up? And this is what I want to teach them. I want to teach them, okay, look at yourself, look what's going on, and try and figure out how to be healthy, happy, and then have that move outwards. And so I'm trying to do that and also increase things at work, because within my work community, basically, yeah, I've had a lot of people ask over time, like, okay, what should we do to get healthier? What should we do to work things? Like, can you help me with a workout or this? And I'm not really providing great help to them. Like, I give them some advice and let them go off on their own, but it's not really converting to much, really, right? They go through a little while and then kind of fizzles out. And so with the course this year, I was looking at, like, how can I get on that and then and move it to helping them? So first, me and my kids, might be even my kids then me. Like, I think I saw my kids then me, but ultimately it has to be me. So that gets fun and interesting, and then kind of push it out to the gang at work. And the structure of doing this has really helped, like, first impressions of the course, because it's kept me really consistent on doing things, and basically even small things with the kids, like defining that hour has really been like, yeah, okay, a lot of the stuff that I've been doing has been around actually community, with my own kids and stuff at work too, which initially I thought was going to be more movement. And so it's kind of twisting, but for a beneficial way. So yeah. And the community at work is actually something, like obviously Ruth and Nick, I mentioned it to you guys. I'm actually a dentist, which enjoy what I do, and patients seem to enjoy when I help them out. But definitely looking to see if I can bring more stuff to them, as to their general health, because there's a big need there, and they don't really. And I've already talked too long. So.
No, that's good. That's great input. I mean, kids and animals are such good players. Like, they're so good at playing. All you have to do is go around kids and animals, and you will learn a lot about play that you maybe didn't recognize. And yeah, back to what you said about just like being able to offer something much deeper, whether you're a dentist or a physio or a personal trainer. You know, this idea that you need to be qualified in every lane to give advice. Whereas the reality is, to be a healthy human yourself, you have to know some basic fundamental principles that aren't necessarily prescriptions, that aren't like, you must do this thing every day. It's like, well, you know, thinking of food in this way really helped clarify things for me, you know, and being able to point someone to a couple resources. Not say you must learn this, but just be like, this is what I learned from. If you want me to send it to you, if you're curious and interested, then this might be a good use of your time and attention. Being able to do that with confidence, knowing that that stuff helped you, and you don't necessarily need to be a nutritionist to point people in that direction of just understanding what food is and what food products are. I think from a clearer understanding of health, you develop a confidence to be able to do that. So I think that's really cool. And thanks for being part of this, Hugh.
Nikki, I don't know if you had this on your agenda, but maybe we got to have Jeff and Ryan introduce themselves and their feedback too, as veteran nerd friends.
Yeah, tell us what we have so many unique people in this community. So
yeah.
Jeff, Ryan, if you just want to give a little spin off of like who you are, what you do, why you're here. Because the other thing too is, like, if I heard this from Jeff and Ryan 6 months ago, it might have changed now. So I'm curious.
Yes, I know it has changed.
Jeffrey, you want to lead it off?
Hi, I'll start. Hi, Hugh and Melinda. It's nice to meet you. You know, I've been quite distant from the foot nerd community, just energetically. I don't know. I've been on this whole other adventure, and yet I feel so close to it, and I'm always available for whatever anybody in this community needs from me, and have found such huge, like, I don't know, this huge connection with some of the people in this community that I work with very regularly. And yeah, so I started off my journey with like awakening through my feet. I owned a podiatry practice, and I just started to ask some really hard questions and got to this point. And then the floodgates just completely burst open for me over the last 3 or 4 years. And I'm now just let go of everything. And I would just have 2 backpacks, and I travel the world, but not not, it's like a knot that I don't push anything. Like I get pulled by the invitations to support and work wherever I'm needed. And, you know, I'm exploring to change my name to Yahef, which is the Hebrew word for barefoot. It means, it's the word that's used for barefoot in Hebrew, and what it means literally is without covering. And so that's been, I noticed that the real awakening for me was about how to fully like uncover myself, to remove all of the layers of stories and projections and beliefs that I took on as a child, to reveal, you know, what's left when I just come from my own authority, which is not like necessarily rebuilding another story, but just living in a moment-to-moment reality of like what's true for me now, right? And then now. And what as I heard the discussion about the program and how to best help people, I have so many questions about it, because, you know, I have this big question of like, how do I help someone reclaim their own authority, right? Because if I'm helping them, then I am somehow potentially removing them from their own authority. And at the same time, it's a process, right? So actually the way I work with people is I just like put a lot of pressure on them to see how they like to have them have to work through the big challenge of being with that pressure, and through that, like removing by their own authority, removing things from their stories and beliefs from their life. And it's a big question, like how to help people, like if we give people the thing, you know. And I think, you know, Nick and I remember I had a flashback to when I was in Ottawa, and we were like, you know, we had all of our brainstorming sessions, and it was like, we don't give people answers, we give people experiments. We give people, okay, here's something that I enjoyed, try this, or that worked for me, try this, and give them something to try, and then make a decision on their own about whether it works for them or not. And there was something else that was really big that
I remember in Costa Rica, we went through the mental model of sharing instead of teaching.
Yeah.
And my new favorite word is pointing. Pointing at things that might be of interest to people, but not saying you need to do this, you should do this. It's like, that was an interesting thing that helped me realize this. I don't know if it'll help you realize this. I don't even know if you want to go there. But if you're interested, pointing there, and that might be an experiment, that might be like, you know, a good podcast that you listen to. But I agree. The imagery I got when you were talking, Jeff, was of someone not wanting to look in the mirror because it's too uncomfortable. And you know, that pressure you were talking about was like reorienting them in front of the mirror and making them essentially sit through the discomfort of looking at their own reflection, and then figuring out, what the heck do I see? What do I want to see? Yeah. Sorry to interrupt. I just wanted to pin
putting people, like, I mean, you got, so the difference between food ingredients and humans is that you just throw you know, like you put food in the pressure cooker, like it doesn't have any say in it, you know, it just goes in there, like you put it in there. With humans, it's a different process. So you know, how you put people in a pressure cooker is different than how you put food in a pressure cooker. And so there has to be this element of connection, love, you know, there's these fundamental elements that have to exist in order to get people into the pressure cooker, you know. Like when we did these emotional body calls every other week for, I mean, I don't even know how long those went for us, for a while, but that's what we were doing. We were going into you know, the metaphorical pressure cooker every couple of weeks to like reveal parts of ourselves that we haven't been looking at. And it only was possible because we had this group that was like really connected, felt very safe together, and not safe as in like, oh, we all agree, yeah, great, safe. No, it's like
that's not a good safe.
There was everybody was there, and everybody had their like you know, I use this language that might not make a lot of sense, but with our conscious anger, right, with our conscious presence there, like fully in the container, and holding it really tight, that we didn't like go off into like tangents or into the mind, and just right here. And then we put pressure on the container, and a lot of things were revealed. I mean, Ruth was like, I mean, the revelations that she was having over this time period were just like so inspiring to me. And yeah, it's like, how do we do that? Because what I heard from you, Hugh, was that you know, people, and this is like the story all the time, we try these new behaviors expecting new results, and then these behaviors are happening, but then over time they just fizzle out. And the problem is that new results don't come from new behaviors. New results come from new frameworks. You know, we got to change the lens with which we see the world. Otherwise, we're going to apply this new behavior, but then eventually it's going to just like fall back to the mean, because the thought map, the framework of the world is the same. And so, yeah, and a new framework comes from a new context. So the Footnote program, this thing is a new context, right? It's immersing ourselves in a totally different thing. So it's like, if, you know, you travel to a new country, you see a new way of doing things, you go, oh shit, like the way I've been doing it is not the only way. It's not the right way. It's just a way. And then, oh wait, and that in itself is a new thought map. It's a new framework. It's like, I don't have the right way of doing things. I just have one way of doing things. And then now, on a really meta level, I can start questioning all of the ways that I do things. And that can start to really, like, you know, on the algorithm, start to change so many aspects of my life. So I tend to try to look for the frameworks that are very meta, that can start to really dismantle all of my patterns, like, or many of my patterns, so that I can start to rewire lots of things at the same time.
And that process is hard.
I die every week. You know,
Yeah.
I have a death, an ego, personality, identity death every week. And I'm not saying that this way is the best way or the right way. I'm just saying this is what I've committed myself to over the last 2 years, to like really die, like let all the old parts of me die, and then see what emerges from the ashes of that. And it's not fun. It's not always fun, but I will tell you the metric that I've been like peaking for a long time on is aliveness. Like my every day feels like a week for me. And it's like, you know, aliveness is like, oh, it's like up here, you know, and it's fucking scary. And fear is one of the most important ingredients of aliveness, like feeling that fear and being in that unknown. You know, it's a word. Fear is a word that I use to describe this thing, where it's like being deeply in the unknown and holding this, yeah, this like, whoa, like I don't know what's going on here, you know. And I
think that's part of what binds everyone together, that builds this connect. Like, you can meet a random person on your computer, basically in 2D, and already feel a sense of connection because they've made a commitment that you don't take lightly, because you made it and you know it's hard. Yep. And this whole idea of like, you know, it's like a little crab that has their shell. What are those little crabs that have shells and they change their shells?
Crab.
What is it?
Hermit
crab. It's like being a hermit crab. And you just accepted that you're going to have to get rid of the shell you have is no longer suitable for the person you want to become. But to escape that shell and all the mental models and all the programming and habits that come with that, you got to go out and be without shell. And that's scary as shit, where you're like, I don't know what's going to happen. And I think all of us having accepted that we have to move away from a shell, and we're now completely naked and vulnerable until we find a new shell, a new framework to kind of plug ourselves into. I think that's the common ground that we all share that allows us to have a connection, even though we're looking at each other on a computer and witnessing each other's courage to kind of move beyond the shell and being witnessed by others as we do that. I think that's where the juiciness comes in, and where community really like sinks its teeth in, is alone, you know, without being witnessed or without being witness to other people's process. It's really hard to maintain motivation to do the hard things.
So yeah, so
Yeah.
the
I
way
wanna-
the way to do this is with a team. The way to
Yeah.
make change happen and be in a constant state of change is with a team, because change really is a somehow related to recognizing my blind spots. And the definition of a blind spot is I cannot see it. But the funny thing is that everybody sees my blind spots. I cannot see mine. And there's this, you know, we talked about guilt, and I'll weave shame and guilt here together. They're slightly different, but there's this like shame and guilt around like, it's like that my blind spots are bad, right? And that I need to like not try to not show them. But there's but then this is again a different, to change the framework, is to say, you know, feedback is gold, because it helps me see my blind spots, which helps me to become more aware and make change happen. So actually, when I'm with a team and I sit with a team and I say, hey, tell me what's not working about me, it is gold. It is like they're giving you the keys to your castle, to the map and the direction to get to your castle, you know, which is, it's a destination thing still, but it's like to become more
The
of
next
what you
castle.
want,
Alive.
to become more
Alive.
of what you want to become, whatever that is: more peace, more harmony, more aliveness, more community, more connection, whatever. Yeah, go ahead, sorry.
No, I just wanted to tie this all back in, because like something Hugh was saying in the beginning, I'll come back to, but like Jeff was talking about how he like feels like every day is a week, and that like this journey that he's been on since the beginning, when he and Nick brainstormed about what the Footnote program was going to be back in the day or whatever, and then where he's come to living with 2 backpacks. Like one could ask themselves, like, what does this have to do with food, movement, meditation, financial literacy, and sleep? And I think what I'm noticing here, I'm going to try not to cry, but it's like there's such a full scale spectrum of foot nerds, you know, like what all that has to do is that, or like Melinda was saying, like I was really into the mechanical side, but this is the foot nerd experience is asking me to focus more on like certain abstract aspects of my health. And ultimately it all comes back to this thing, which is like our blind spots and how we need each other so much in order to feel alive and feel healthy and feel human. And yes, it's almost like the 5 or 6 pillars that we have are the, you know, they're just the very beginning, like little, like we're in the high chair as little toddlers, like playing around with developmental movement and a couple of like smashed sweet potatoes on our faces. And ultimately what you come away with is like this full scale, full-fledged, emotionally, no, like there, like Jeff was saying, like there's no destination, but it's like the willingness to feel alive is scary, and it's not always easy. But Nick and I have been talking about this a lot, about like fun, because I was like, this 360 days of the Foot Nerd program in 2022 is going to be about fun. And so in certain ways I'm like, yeah, body shots and bikinis and functional back bends. But what I really meant was like, fun is learning, and learning is not always fun. And then fun has to, and now I'm like, okay, so there's like a lot of blind spots, but I always talk about like there's this relief that comes in there, right? Like there's, when you sit in the pressure cooker, which by the way, Jeff was talking about the emotional body calls, which, you know, it's fun in a very like exhilarating way. Like it is fucking fun, but
It's like eating spicy food if you're into it, or cold exposure.
Yeah,
like it's
you're
fun,
like,
but it's not that fun.
Yeah, you're like, my under eyes are sweating and I'm gonna have booty burn tomorrow, but it's still, no, I'm just kidding. But no, but it is a relief, and the relief turns out to be exhilaration when you go out and take a breath of fresh air. And then the frameworks start to change from that, and it all kind of folds in on itself. And so it all ties back into it all always kind of folds back into each other. Like you take it's all about risk taking. The nervous system has to adjust and recognize the pattern. And then like, oh, today I want an apple instead of Doritos. Who would have thunk? And then you take the next risks and you take the next risks. But I've had a lot of people say like, well, it seems like you deviate from movement. Like, I just want to know about the feet, like get back to the feet. And it's like, yeah, well, the feet, like Jeff is saying, is always going to lead you into the jungle with 2 backpacks eventually. So that's my observation.
None of us know what health is. We're all trying to figure out what the F health is. And we're just sharing our insights with each other in hopes that we can collaboratively discover. And the funny part is, there is no health that we discover. The process of discovery is health, I think. As weird as that might sound.
It's also rewiring the definition of certain words, and not only rewiring, but having a clear understanding as a group of what it means. Like, what does fun mean? Like, fun, there's like we do the old map and the new map of like each feeling, right? We could do the old map and the new map of fun. So the old map is that it's body shots and partying and blah blah blah. And the new map of fun could be transformation, healing, like learning new things about myself. That we have a word for it. It's called high level fun, which is like an adult, responsible, a different kind of fun that is about change happening, like something actually happening, not that we go to an island on a boat and like we loud music and have fun, that's,
which is still fun, by the way.
Sure.
Sometimes.
Well, but we can have, so it's about creating distinctions, right?
Yes.
Like, is it that's a kind of fun that's like about, I don't know, I mean, that's kind of like not become so fun for me anymore. Or actually, what has been interesting for me is the revelation, like the admitting to myself that actually I was never doing that because I thought it was fun. I was actually just doing that because that's what everybody else was doing, and that was the definition of fun as the society that I was living in.
And the reason why I want to say that is because I find that there are seasons, right? There are seasons of fun, and I guess why I want to say like body shots and boat rides, are a kind of fun that may or may not be necessary in the seasons of a person's life. So when I was doing that, I was having a great time. And I look back on those experiences and I'm like, that was pretty fun. When I try that now, it doesn't feel the same, but we go through seasons. And I've been talking with Nick about like, I'm going to turn 55 this year. And it's definitely a new season. Like I have never been so interested in exploring death, like the mortality, the unspoken. And this is a very big aspect of health, like we're talking about health, and what it all boils down to in fear is like eventually we have to deal with our own mortality and the mortality of the people around us that we love, and we have to talk about it. And maybe when I was 22 and taking body shots and boat rides, that was a season of my life where I didn't have to or want to or nor should it have been a necessary part of my daily ponderings, if you will, So I just say like the seasons of a person's life, we have every single age group. And now listening to Hugh and Melinda with children, it struck me that foot nerds are breeding other foot nerds and bringing other new little healthy humans into the world. And I sometimes don't recognize the impact of the children of people who are part of this team, like I just posted on the YouTube our initial unschooling that I did with a bunch of foot nerds and Jeff, and where we explored like all the 5 pillars with parents and children. It seems so long ago now, but like I forget about the kids, and it's really just so wonderful to think about the generations too, that this is impacting.
I don't know if Ryan, if you're around, if you're just listening in, or if you want to say a few words, but
I'm
go
here.
for it. Awesome.
Sorry. It's funny. I've been listening, and I kind of mapped out a couple of things. It's like, oh, this is what I'll say, and that's what I'll say, and everybody's talking, and like I am identifying with so much of what every individual person on this call is saying that it's flipping what I want to say. over and over again. But I'll try to be quick because I don't have video. Just driving right now. So I'm an accountant. So add another different type of occupation, I guess, to the list of different types of foot nerds that we've got here. I think there's two things I wanted to touch on. One was just the value of like what kind of the foot nerd experience has meant to me, and I think Melinda was talking about how it has forced her to look in the mirror and do some self work, which is not always comfortable. And I found it was funny. I really resonated with that because I think it was just the intro worksheet, and I say this to people all the time, but the intro worksheet had a question that read something like what do you love about your life? And I read that and I was like, crap, not enough, like not enough stuff. And I liked the movement elements of my life, and I liked the people in my life, but most of the time I was working this corporate job that just didn't line up with my values. And when I read that question and tried to answer it, it's like I guess I just haven't asked myself that question properly for a long time, and it forced a bit of a reckoning. And part of what the Foot Nerd program was for me was an opportunity to go through that process. And I started the process of resigning to try to reframe my life in a way that better lines up with what I value. And that was, I guess, if you look at the Foot Nerd program as an experience, that was a big part of it for me. So that transformational element, Jeff talked a lot about that too, shedding the skin that we're in, and the Foot Nerd program being a great opportunity to do that. I really resonate with a lot of that. I've moved out of the city now. I'm starting up a new kind of way of life out in a more rural place, and so all this stuff is happening, and it's like, man, how much of this is like the Foot Nerd program was an inflection point in that sense. And I've kind of gone through the content, and I love the content. Like, I think it's amazing, but it's also, the journey continues a year plus after I started it. And there's all sorts of stuff like that. Anyhow, I'll try to button that one up there. And then the other thing is just I think we have been talking a little bit about like what's the value to being a foot nerd in the community. And I just wanted to say, like, as an accountant, I'm not a health professional, so people don't necessarily ask me questions about hold on just a moment, gotta mind the driving.
Yes.
So as an accountant, people don't come to me for health questions necessarily, but I'm also, I tend to be, and I hope this isn't like a brag, but I'm the most healthy person in most of my communities, I'd say, outside of maybe the gym. So like people that I used to work with, people that are in my neighborhood, my family and friends, all these groups of people see me, and I'm trying just to live in accordance with what I think are pretty simple principles in the Foot Nerd program. Mind the 5 pillars, be responsible about the things that you do and take into your body and your habits. And people see this stuff, and they don't necessarily adopt your behaviors right away, but those influences are really powerful. And in little bits and pieces, I've seen the kind of I guess just the capacity for other people to absorb my behaviors and my habits in sort of indirect ways, and eventually they do ask the little questions, like what are, and it might just be like, what are you doing this weekend? And I say, well, I'm training up for a long run. And so they say, oh, what's that look like? And like, these are the types of conversations you have whereas if all your weekends are about, not to cast shame on boat rides and body shots, but if all your weekends are about that, then your conversations will be different. So anyhow, the point that I'm trying to make there is just, I think that the Foot Nerd program is, as a non-health professional, something that's very readily available to non-health professionals. I think that we should be, looking for opportunities to plug into other spaces like, accounting and corporate spaces. And because there's tons of value there. Anybody can pick this program up and go through it and get a ton of benefit, and then be just another member of their community, which lives in accordance with these values and has an impact. So anyhow, there's a million more things that I could say, but I'll leave it off there. And thanks, guys, for giving me the floor here.
Awesome. Thanks for sharing, Ryan. I think, it's, this whole notion of creating something that anyone can sort of plug into in their own way. And that's sort of where I know the word protocol is like a very boring, plain Jane word, but this whole notion that if we create this base code repository of the big high level elements of health, what are the main elements of health? What are some good resources we've learned from? And then on top of that protocol, we design this experience, which is a very intentional 360-day experience. People who go through that experience and understand the breadth of things we cover and have gone through all the tough experiences, right? Reclaiming certain movements and positions, diving deep into feelings and emotions, whatever that means, defining health for themselves. And that's one of my favorite questions to ask people actually when they come. I'm still a kind of a physio for my own family. I have this rule that you're only allowed to complain about something if you're actively working on it. So I don't get that many complaints anymore. This whole idea that by being the example, like you said, that's how people learn, right? When I kept telling people that they needed to work on things because I heard them complain, they were so resilient and they always pushed it away. And then when I stopped saying anything at all, and I just literally went about my life, people started to ask questions. Then they actually wanted answers. Then they actually and I would always follow up the question with another question. And the first question I ask is, how do you define health? No one in my family knows how to define health. And yet they are all asking me, they're all like, oh, I want to be healthy. It's like, what does healthy mean? And then it's just crickets. But you can see things going in their mind where like, oh shit, yeah, I don't even know. I'm trying to get to X. I don't even know where X is. Probably not going to get there. Step one, define what X is so that you actually have a lighthouse to kind of find. And I think as you work on your own health, you start to realize that no one can give you the answers. They can only stimulate you asking good questions or maybe point you in the right direction. So I think this whole idea of just being healthy, being a healthy person, puts you in a position to be a resource, sometimes without even having to say anything. And I think that's the best way that this kind of permeates. If you're a parent, then your everyday living is literally teaching your kids health by just you going through the experience of improving your health or defining what health is. So yeah, everyone gets something. I love hearing what people get from this experience because everyone gets such different things based on the background they come from. But I think the binding element is that we need each other to go through this, because alone it's too hard, it's too easy to quit, and we haven't really made a hard enough commitment to get us through the hard times. And it's a hard process. You can decide what intensity you go at it with, right? It doesn't always have to be crazy intense, but this whole idea of going through a 360-day chunk of time is a massive commitment. And if we can hold each other accountable to whatever that means for us, right? It might mean very different things to different people, but if we can just help each other get through whatever our definition of that experience is, I think it's a very powerful thing. So yeah, thanks for that, Ryan.
Nick, just really quick about the what is health question. I noticed that when people, sometimes we have a lack of words, right? Because we're sort of mimetic creatures. And whenever people are what I notice is whenever people are asking what another person is doing and they say I want to be healthy, what they really are observing is they're watching you feel alive. And they're essentially saying I want to be like that. I want a little bit of what he's having for lunch. I want to know what that feels like. He looks like he feels good. And recently I just went through the lesson of defining health. And so I was asking people and I never really realized how people have a hard time defining it. But one person said, feeling good. Health is feeling good in every way, physically, spiritually, mentally. So that when people see Ryan, Melinda, Hugh, Jeff leading by example, they're I want to be like that. That's healthy to me. And I think that's the power of leading by example and continuing on to in the process of trying to feel good in all the ways.
Yeah, and even feeling good, like I would even prod a little bit more, like define, because guess what? Sitting on the couch eating Doritos sometimes feels real good. So it's like, how do we unpack feeling good? Like, what do you mean feeling good? Right? Because I think some elements of health need to be harder in order to get to you got to go through the hard part to get to the feel good part.
But that's what I mean, like by example, because they have a hard time defining for themselves, but when they see you mimetically leading by example, they're like, well, health is like, they don't want to say it, but they're like, I want to be like you. You look like you're having a good life. I want to do that thing. And that's what I mean by the feeling good, you know?
Your description of that looks like it feels good. Yeah, I think that's a really good string of words, because that's like, we're looking for a picture of a feeling, and it's like, they're not really the same, but they're like, that looks like what it feels. And yeah, so like, okay, well, that's exactly it. Those are really good string of words.
Yeah. I mean, I've started to use this. I've always used the hardware software metaphor, and like when I was a physio, it worked really well because it's like your body's your hardware. We all have impeccable, high-tech, badass hardware. Like it comes stock. And we just spend a bunch of time with shitty software, right? We start to use this hardware in a way that's not really how it's aligned to be used. And health is literally just a software update. It's and software update is literally just changing the way you think about health and changing your habits. And the goal is not to do like a full-on massive software update overnight. It's like every day do a little software update. And if people can, somehow people relate to this hardware software thing, because I think we're so close and so connected to technology. And I really think that people demonize their hardware, right? Like every time I worked with someone in the clinic, they're always like, oh, this terrible knee. It's like, stop shit talking your hardware. It's perfect. You're just not using the hardware right. And, you know, and most of the time it's because they don't know how to use the hardware right. This is the fundamental problem. It's like, no one ever taught us in school how to use our hardware, this magical, adaptive, self-healing hardware that we don't even fully understand yet. And we don't have to fully understand it to use it, right? I don't need to understand how electricity works or how the internet works to go on a call with y'all. I think it's pretty magical. But if we just took the same approach where it's like, it's never a hardware problem, it's always a software problem, but nobody's being given the right software updates to run on their bodies because there's so much confusion, right? We get promised all the good stuff, right? Do this, pay this, and you'll get this. It's like, well, it doesn't really work like that. So if we can all just understand what it means to update our own software and then point people in the right direction to maybe curiously approach their own software updates, because we don't know what updates they need, but we know how we discovered our updates. And if we can share that sort of framework and point people in the right direction, I think we're doing a lot of good. By not giving answers, we do a much better job at health, I think. Because I think most of health right now revolves around getting answers from the knowers. And a lot of the knowers I know aren't even very healthy, which is interesting, right? That's any thoughts on that? Like experience, like how has your perception of health providers changed, in your experience? I'd love to hear any thoughts on that. And maybe actually now that Cedric's here, Cedric, if you want to, thanks for being here. If you want to introduce yourself, we kind of got everyone, we got Hugh and we got Melinda sort of introduce themselves and just say like, what brought you here? What brought you to this community? And what have your first impressions been of the Footnote experience? Because you're sort of like the first group going through this new framework. So yeah, go for it.
All right. So first of all, my bad for being a bit late to the call. But answering to your question, so why I entered this program, right now I'm doing what's called the Czech Academy, and it's like an institute created by Paul Czech. And I decided to do that as my like university because I graduated high school last year. And it was actually the Foot Collective that kind of got me into all this like holistic health stuff, because when I was 16, 15, I had a lot of knee pain when playing tennis. And it came to a point where I actually stopped in one lesson because I simply couldn't run. I just couldn't like handle the pain in my knees and my low back. So that led me to start to look at things differently. I went to a physio and they even did x-rays on my back. And he was like, oh, everything's fine, you know, your back's fine. And then he made me do some squats, and he was like, yeah, you're fine. But I didn't feel fine. And that's when I started looking at I bought the beam. I also started doing a lot of the fascia release with the lacrosse ball. And then from that, I transitioned completely to barefoot shoes. And from there, it just scaled to, you know, changing everything around my lifestyle and then studying this. And for me, the Foot Collective program was a way to have something alternative to the Czech Academy. And I was also inspired by Marisa Pontones. She's a foot nerd in Mexico. I went to visit her clinic in December, and she told me, you know, you should check out this program. I think you're suited for it, and maybe you'd like it. And that's why I'm here.
Cool. Thanks for being here. And yeah, I love that you just felt empowered to take a different path, because I think university is fundamentally good.
Yeah.
I think the way it's done right now is ineffective. I think it's overpriced and under delivers on value, right? Like there's so much potential there, but it's not been unlocked because we're stuck in this old mental model. And it seems like the only way, it seems like this is actually the transition. You know, I used to think that like we would have this grand implosion of universities and colleges and it would be rebuilt in this new way that aligns with today's world. But I think things like this that we're doing are actually like an alternate path whereby people are discovering ways of getting more value from money they spend to learn and to want to learn in community. People want to learn in community, right? Like I would sit in a 500 person auditorium when I was in undergrad and I'd know like 3 people. And there's no opportunity for me to know other people because when the class is done, you're running to the next class. And there's no connection. There's nobody witnessing your learning experience. There's no exchange of ideas. So yeah, thanks for being here and contributing, because every unique person that comes here with a unique background, unique story is actually the learning. Like that is the learning, right? The information that's in the experience and sort of like the template is there are options on a menu that you can choose from. But I think this, you know, I had a bunch of stuff I want to talk about, but I don't want to talk about any of it. I just want to hear people talk, hear people's stories, because that is the most powerful way I think we learn, through each other, from each other experiences. And yeah, that's awesome. Liz, thanks for being here.
Hi, what's up? I'm sad I missed all the juicy stuff, but
All right, Ruth prompted me and made sure that we recorded it. I forgot at the start, but we captured most of it, so you can go back and listen.
okay,
Yeah. So, you know, one thing I did want to just touch on is this whole idea that, okay, if we're calling ourselves foot nerds, and if we're, you know, there's not that much to feet. If you wear good shoes and you don't wear shoes that mess your feet up, you're going to have healthy feet if you're just patient and consistent. But with that said, there's so many people out there that are struggling with foot pain and ankle problems. And, you know, oftentimes that bleeds into problems upstream at the knee or low back. And so, you know, if someone comes up to you and says, how do I improve the health of my feet? And you have 60 seconds to talk to them. I'd love to hear everyone's perspective on what they're saying based on their current understanding. And there's no right or wrong answer. But I think as foot nerds, you know, I used to think that the people with the most understanding, the most nuanced understanding, every arthrokinetic joint dynamic, every single piece of fascia, like the people who knew the most about the foot in terms of like the most little things were the most effective people. But I went and saw podiatrists and spoke with podiatrists that knew every single micro nugget of the foot and didn't understand that the shoes were causing the problem they were treating. So that really like punched me in the gut. I'm like, whoa, the people who know the most seem to have the worst tunnel vision to not understand the simple principles that people actually need, right? And so I'd love to hear people's perspectives, because now it's like, now I feel the less you know about feet and the more you understand just basic principles like specific adaptation to imposed demand and the fact that your body adapts constantly, I feel like those people are way more effective at portraying helpful foot health tips than the people who know the deep anatomy. So if you had 60 seconds, let's just go through. I'm just very curious to hear. 60 seconds to help someone who is struggling with foot health. What would you tell them? Let's start with Ruth. You want to start this?
If I had 60 seconds, and the question is,
The question is, I have a lot of foot pain. I don't know what to do. You seem to have pretty healthy paws, and you're a foot nerd. So I feel like I came to the right place. What would you tell that person in 60 seconds, give or take?
I would probably start. Oh, okay. So 60 seconds. I can't start with a question. I got to just give the spiel.
Sure,
okay, here we go.
You can do whatever you want. There's no rules.
Well, it's funny because like before I would try to give the answer, and now the first thing that comes to me is like ask a question. And the question is, are those the shoes that you wear all day, every day? And how much time do you spend in a chair? And how much time do you spare? How much time do you spend not in your shoes, in those pointy shoes? In those pointy ramped cushioned shoes? Let's talk. Tell me that. That's my 60 seconds.
Amazing. Cedric, what's yours?
All right. So when people ask me these type of things, sometimes I don't know what to say. But if I were to like tell someone just a direct response when it comes to their foot health, I would just tell them to walk barefoot in their home.
Boom. Amazing. So PS, if everyone's cool with me posting this will go on YouTube. So you're probably speaking to a lot of people who have foot pain that might be interested in this question. So that's why we're going through the exercise.
I just want to add something, because the reason I give such a like small thing is because I find that when it comes to health, I think the more like dumb your explanations are, or the simpler things you give, the easier it is for someone to make a change. You know, I follow, like now all my Instagram is full of like health stuff, fitness, exercise, and sometimes it's just way too overwhelming. And for example, there are days where I don't even know how to work out. And now I've made my like workout routine super simple, and I told myself just follow it for a year and ignore the rest, and that just brings me a lot of peace. So I
How old are you, Cedric?
I'm 18.
Dude, I wish I had. Woo. If I had that kind of understanding of health when I was 18, I would be a very different person. I would have avoided many injuries, and I would have avoided telling people a lot of shit that I shouldn't have told them.
But just knowing there are people like Cedric in the program, I seriously, I'm like, the world is going to be okay. We're going to be fine.
Yeah.
We're good.
That's what I mean, but it gives me hope. It's like, yes. Ryan, what's your take? If you're listening, if you got 60 seconds, someone's got problems with their paws, and they just want the TLDR from a foot nerd, what are you telling them or asking them?
I mean, it's so different. I think the one thing that this is not feet, but I almost always ask people, like, how do you sleep? It's such an indicative way into total body health, and I mean, I think is just one piece of total body health at the end of the day. And I don't know, it's like the feet part I get by just walking around barefoot all the time, and that inspires the conversations that need to happen about, you know, why are you wearing shoes? Aren't your feet cold? It's like, well, no, you know, your feet adapt, that sort of thing. And so like the 60 seconds ends up being kind of me just explaining why I'm cool with walking around without shoes. And then there's usually a nugget in there where I can say, well, you know, why don't you, as Cedric said, why don't you walk around why are you wearing socks in your house? Or, you know, why don't you take a little stroll around the neighborhood without shoes on just once and see how it feels? Like that's usually where the 60 seconds goes. But, you know, the other thing that I almost always will prompt is, how are you sleeping? Or like, do you get 8 hours of sleep a night? Like, what's your sleep environment look like? Because it's such a great diagnostic tool for total body health, is just how well somebody's sleeping. And there's a couple of good questions you can ask about that, I'd say, to almost anybody. And good sleep cures a lot of problems, whether it's foot injuries or you know, any other injuries that are causing foot pain. It's like, get good sleep and you can solve a lot of problems. So that's the other thing that I'll bring up in the 60-second window that I'd get. And I'm gonna have to dial off, so I apologize, but I'll check out the rest of what everybody has to say when the recording comes out.
No worries. Thanks for that little nugget. I like that. Pivot to sleep. Sleep is not like the word sleep didn't come up once in all of my university career. In physio,
I know, eh?
in undergrad, like never once, apart from the fact that like other students would say like, I didn't get any sleep last night. Like that was the only context that ever came up. It's so weird.
And
Yeah,
in fact,
all-nighters was the only thing. That's
exactly.
the only sleep conversation that I had in university.
Yeah, it was like and it was almost like virtuous. It was like you were a true academic warrior. The less sleep you could get by on. That's such BS, guys. BS.
And that carried into my career too, and I think it does for a lot of people's careers. Like I spent most of my 20s working way too much, sleeping way too little, and nobody would tell me not to do that. It's like I never had one boss, maybe once or twice if I really looked like hell, a boss would say like, go home and get some sleep. But like it would take some pretty dire circumstances to get to that place. Even just having a few people aware of how beneficial sleep is in places of influence, the amount of good that could do, just kind of spreading out through their circles, it's hard to underestimate.
Yeah, I agree. Hugh, what you got? 60 seconds. What's your?
Okay.
This obviously gets way harder towards the end because you're like, I gotta try not to copy someone, but that was really good. But that's okay. There's no wrong answer.
No, the sleep
Yeah.
question or sleep answer is phenomenal, but I actually have another answer because I had it recently. Actually, someone basically a colleague at work came through and they're like, okay, well, every time I go running, I get knee pain up my calf and the back of the knee in there, and I can never get more than 5 kilometers. I'd like to be able to run more. Like, what could I do about this? And so then I just paused, and then I just looked at her like really empathetically and kind of hitched off my head to one side. And I was like, and she just finished telling me that she just bought new shoes, and she's standing there in these beautiful heels, and she's in the heels all the time. I see her often, right? And so I'm like, you really don't want my answer. And I stopped. And that was and then she's like, what? And I'm like, do you really like your shoes? And that was the end of the conversation. So the conversation will pursue later, but at this point, that's where it ended. So
that's a good one. Because guess what? That'll simmer with her for a while.
So yeah.
That's my favorite thing to do at airports when I go around without shoes, and people say, well, what? Like the brave person will come up and say, well, why aren't you wearing shoes? And sometimes the most powerful thing is the pause, where I'll just say, why are you wearing shoes? And I just look at them with a smile, and I do not say a word. They speak first, and sometimes it gets real awkward. But that's like a powerful nudge for them to be like, oh, I've never asked that question before. That's a good question.
And with that heel, that's powerful, Hugh, because as someone who wore heels and not even very high heels and appreciate fashionable, beautiful, fancy leg altering shoes, pelvis altering shoes, I was never, ever comfortable. So it's funny because that question, you don't really need any more than that, because if somebody just tuned into like, my effing feet hurt so bad by 30 minutes in, and yes, I love these shoes, but why? Like you can't help but to ask yourself the question. And then I was thinking about like how I'm learning so much about the art of question asking thanks to Nick, because on the tennis court, I wear zero shoes. And the only reason why I tried to go barefoot and I tried to wear the FCs, but the people in the tennis courts are not having it. But somebody recently asked me, those are interesting shoes. And I said, oh yeah. And then she said, it doesn't look like you have any arch support. And I said, they're not designed to have arch support. And then I just ran off, they're not designed to have support. And she was like, do those work? And I'm like, well, they're not designed to have arch support or cushion. They're not designed to be supportive. And then I just went and won my tennis match.
Yeah, and that will impact that person, right? Like maybe not very much. And Hugh, I love that because really what that insinuates, that question is, do you like running more than you like your shoes? Or do you like your shoes more than you like running or / being out of pain? And like when you put it really obvious up to them, like the mirror up to them, it seems like a no-brainer. But that's a powerful dose of cognitive dissonance to be like, well, clearly I would rather not be in pain. Like that matters to me more than my shoes, but my actions are not doing that. The thing is, most people don't know the shoes are causing that. That's the like juicy part where no one's ever being told that in a simple way, making the connection of wear high heels, alter biomechanics equals create painful running patterns. No one's made that connection. And so they don't have a reason to get rid of the shoes because they're like, well, I really like the shoes and I have no reason to demonize them until I'm given a little nudge of truth. And then I got to mull on that a little bit. Best for last, Melinda. And do you go by Melinda or Linda? What do you prefer?
Melinda.
Melinda, perfect.
I'll answer to anything, but did you have to say something else, Hugh?
Yeah, just one last thing, because in the context of that, as I was asking that question about your shoes, I'm wearing zeros to work in. Like,
amazing.
So
that's the important part because you're being the example. You're not just saying do this, but I don't do this. That's powerful.
Sorry, cut me off.
Introduce your dog.
This is Nanook.
Nanook.
My crazy res dog. Yes, 100 pounds of no social boundaries.
There you go.
Okay, so I really like the deliberate pause. I need to work on that better. But I love everyone's answers for the 60 second explanation. But as simple as it is, just barefoot and go for a walk, preferably outside. I'm gonna take this out. This is a weird feedback. Can you hear me?
Yep, we got you.
Okay. These headphones are just giving me weird feedback. In the ski shop, we do a lot of high-end boot fitting. That's our main focus. And so we do talk to people about feet a lot. And it's an interesting space because ski boots are not good for your feet. There's no question about that. And we have everybody in ski boots and we want their foot stable. We don't want a lot of movement in there, and it's hard plastic, and people are always complaining about their feet, but they go from these ski boots to their cushioned shoes. So just having that conversation of what you can do after you get out of the boot and different, like I actually put a beam and toe spacers and a cork ball right next to the boot bench.
Amazing.
So people can they just see it and they want to know about it, and it's sitting right there kind of staring at them. So just that slight little nudge to, hey, what's that? Hey, there's things you can do to not be in pain.
Yeah. Just asking someone to try going barefoot is such a good answer to that question, because you're not telling them what they need to do. You're simply opening the door to a new experience that they might not know was worth doing. Right? No one's ever told them to go barefoot. The person putting them in orthotics probably never told them to go barefoot, unsurprisingly. I remember I worked with a Red Bull free skier, and we had that conversation about boots, because he's like, well, should I get boots with more space in them that allow more mobility? I'm like, dude, you don't want any mobility because you're not going to have any responsiveness from your skis. But it's not about, like, it's not black and white where everything has to allow full mobility. It's like you're using sport specific footwear for a purpose. You're not spending the majority of your life in your ski boots. So what can you do outside the ski boots to make sure that your feet are functional? And how can you make sure that as your foot's splaying out, your ski boots are adapting accordingly? Like whether you do a punch out in the liner or whatever. And so, yeah, like diving into having a broader understanding allows us to dive into more nuance instead of just like a yes or no answer or some cookie cutter answer. We can every time you reply to one of these questions is an experiment, right? Like hearing all of your answers is going to make me modify my answer because there are some really good nuggets there. And I think every interaction you have, the most memorable ones are often the ones that kind of stick with you. And for me, most of the most memorable ones are the ones where I said the least in my answer, or where I answered a really good question and it really made someone think. And yeah, I think so much of health is just about asking better questions. And it's like the more you know, the more you realize you should be saying less. At least that's been my experience. So yeah, Liz, how would you answer in 60 seconds or less if someone comes up and asks you and says, I got problems with my feet, what do I do? You look like you got healthy feet, and you're a foot nerd. So
I don't know if people would say I look like I have healthy feet. They're all like, aren't your feet cold? Are they cold? What are you doing? They probably think I'm trying to kill my feet or something. Yeah. I get the are your feet cold question in very strange temperatures. Like it's like summer and they're like, are your feet cold? I'm like, no, are yours? In your shoes? You're
probably
cold?
theirs are probably cold.
I mean, generally I feel like when people are asking that, their feet are in some way cold or they think they would be cold. Yeah, but I guess I don't know. That's what I usually
Oh,
get.
you're
People
freezing.
say arch support something, and he just goes, "Ugh." Now we're gonna have an argument, but I try to not because people ask like, "Oh, like I can't wear those." Oh wait, am I
No,
still
we got
there?
you. We got you
Then
now.
my
We got you
internet's
now.
unstable.
You're a little bit leggy, but you're good now.
Okay. Yeah, people always ask about the arch support, like, "Oh, I can't wear those; they don't have arch support." And then like, if we end up having that conversation about arch support, or if I can have like an in, I usually just tell them that like like from an engineering perspective, the strongest engineering structure is the arch of the foot, or not even of the foot, just in general, the arch. And we have the strongest engineering structure at the
We're getting parts of it, but not all of it.
arch is to put something under it, and then that's I don't know. Uh-oh. Am I
It's
here?
okay. I think we got the gist that I caught was we have the strongest engineering structure built into our foot. If you support it, it weakens it.
Yeah, that was
Correct. That's a good one. See, like Liz comes from an engineering background. So we get all these different answers based on all the different lenses that come from people in this sort of community. And I think that's, I mean, it's like a double-edged sword, right? You have people all over the world, great. You have so many different perspectives. You also have a billion freaking time zones and makes these calls really hard to do. So I don't know what the solution to that is. I feel like it would be cool to have someone take the lead to organize maybe a quarterly call in each time zone. And if we just put that roster up, then everyone has the chance to choose which one they can go to. So I think that's something Ruth and I will sort of mull over, because every 3 months is a low enough frequency. It's not a huge commitment. And if we put the dates on there in advance and people can put a calendar prompt to just pick which call they tune into, and maybe people tune into different time zone calls if they're able to kind of get, it's almost like there's like different hubs. So we're going to work on that. But yeah, I mean, if anyone has, I wanted to talk about the foot protocol, but I don't think there's really a need. Like, I think that little experiment of just giving our take is actually more productive than talking about this framework we've constructed, because once again, less answers equals more freedom to explore. And I think it's almost like we just have to give people the permission to explore health. And I don't think that's often, in my formal training as a physio, that certainly was never on the radar. It's like, you must have all the answers because people are coming to pay you for answers. And it's like, well, I don't even have the answers for myself. So I can't give other people answers for, based on their circumstances, which I have no idea about. But I think the art of asking good questions, of questions that you would want to ask yourself to deepen your understanding and give you permission to explore, if we get good at asking those questions, we will be much more effective at helping guide people or point people in the right direction with health without feeling like we ever have to do the work for them, right? It's like a video game. There's infinite numbers of levels. Everyone has to play the game themselves, but I feel like we're getting some cheat codes that we can give people to like play the game way faster and more efficient than how quickly we've played it. So yeah, I mean, stage is open. We got 25 more minutes. So if anyone has anything to share or chat about or a question to ask the group, stage is open. I want to talk less now.
I just have a question. Is there ever going to be like an in-person meeting?
Yes.
Good.
Ideally, there will be many. So I think an annual summit would be cool. Yeah. I don't know. I mean, Canada's an interesting place right now.
I don't think they'll let me in right now. So
Yeah, that's what I mean. So, but I think we're moving past that. Like it has to be as shitty as it will get before it gets much better. And I think we're seeing the human immune system in Canada react to this nonsense that's being imposed on us. And I think it's starting to move away from that. But we'll have to kind of look at like, where are people concentrated? Where would be the most strategic place to hold a meetup that's affordable and that can actually get people coming? So I don't know when that'll be, maybe later in 2022 or maybe start of next year, but most definitely we need to at least start conversations about like, where should we do this? When should we do this? How should we do this? And it would be really fun to just rent a big Airbnb and coordinate a bunch of people just hanging out, having good conversations. Yeah.
You're killing me, Nick. You're killing me.
We just gotta be patient.
But I love the no hesitation when she asked, he said, yes, no hesitation.
Yes. This has always been, I mean, it's been 2 years of having to be patient, but yeah, it's coming. So, yeah.
We should do it in the US, in Duluth, right here in my yard. I don't know if I would like that.
It's very selfless of you. I want to walk up my door and see a bunch of nerds.
Yes, come on over, people.
I mean, you know, just organizing like a group play session and inviting anyone in the TFC community to come, and then having, you know, like in Australia, Australia is a really tight knit group of nerds. So right now, James, who leads the Australian division, has this piece of land out in the bush. And I think they're doing a gathering within the next month or two where a bunch of foot nerds are just going to come and spend a weekend there, bring their families and just go out in the bush and have some fun together in nature. So I'll get the feedback from him of how it went and what things he wants to improve for the next one. So we'll get the cheat codes from when we do it, when we're actually allowed to do it. So
awesome.
Yeah. Cool. That's about it. I mean, if anyone has questions about whatever we talked about at the start there, about TFC really being about facilitating community and providing good tools, the main two tools being the foot and ankle health kit and the foot nerd experience. I think, you know, we went through a bunch of phases where we got into a lot of things. We were working on footwear, we were working on all these different natural podiatry, and now it's just like focus everything into what we can do best as a community. And I think the foot nerd experience will be this constantly adapting thing where ideally everyone that goes through the experience plugs their input in so that the experience gets better, right? So that we have more stories to share, more insights to share. And so, you know, I look forward to when people start to really challenge the existing information that's in there, right? Like we had this great discussion about meat in the foot nerd community at one point, and like so many diverse perspectives, a lot of different perspectives that like hit hard stops where they disagree with each other. But it was interesting to witness because we were able to have a pretty intense disagreement where like 5 different perspectives were kind of clashing heads. And we were able to kind of synthesize it into like the common fundamental elements that we can all agree on. And I think that was it's so hard to find people to have productive disagreements with now, right? Everyone is like, I'm on this team or that team. If you're not on my team, we can't talk. So I think we have an opportunity to all bring our stories, whether it's on these calls or whether it's in Slack, to bring our diverse perspectives and put them into the ring of just like kind, respectful, good faith disagreement so that we can tease out of that, like some really good insights that we wouldn't be able to get to individually. So I'm looking forward to more of that.
Wait, I have a question. Melinda, where are you from? Actually, all of you except for Nick and Ruth, where are you from? I missed that part if you told me. Whatever.
I'm in Montana, in Bozeman.
Okay, I almost went to school there. I actually went out and toured there. I'll come visit you.
Yes, come visit. That's what I was thinking. We just bought some property. We bought 20 acres up in the mountains. So I was thinking for like a little
amazing
nerd commune.
We could do that. We
Yes.
could. I mean, you know, as long as it's not crazy cold, we could all bring some camping equipment and just that'd be okay.
Absolutely. Everybody's welcome. That'd be so fun.
Okay. Amazing. I'm gonna write that down.
Melinda, and if you're serious, we can get busy planning that, and I will be your support system, 100%.
That would be amazing. No, I am absolutely serious. We just bought this property this summer and we're in this transition. We live above our ski shop right now, and we built a little 200 square foot cabin on it right now that has very little to it, but we're just gonna slowly build more. And we already
Cool.
stayed out there, and we had some friends stay out there for our employee party and had tents up in the winter, and it still wasn't bad.
Amazing. Yeah, I'm cool with winter camping, but it might be a hard sell to some people.
Yeah.
Yeah, we'll import a labor force, a volunteer labor force to help you do whatever you need to do.
I love it.
Awesome. And then Cedric and Hugh, I guess Liz might not know where you're from, so if you want to let her know.
So I'm from basically Montreal, Quebec would be the closest big town. Granby is what it's called. It's about an hour out of Montreal. So a fellow Canuck.
I come from well, I'm half Mexican, half Swiss, and right now I'm living in the German side of Switzerland.
Nice.
Cool.
Okay. I don't think I can drive over there as easily as Montana, but I'll give it a go.
Yeah, unless you got a hovercraft, then you might be okay.
Yeah. Just fly. I know people with planes.
Cool. Well, thank you all for showing up. I mean, spending an hour
Yeah.
and 40 minutes on your Saturday morning, giving like full attention, and having, connecting with each other. It's like, we all have to feel that this is worth it in order to show up. So thank you all for showing up.
Yeah.
Thanks everyone for listening who wasn't able to show up.
Yep.
And there's nothing
And
else.
this
I
is
look forward
proof
to
of
the next
work.
call. This is proof of work. Yes. I look
Thanks,
forward to
Ruth.
listening to the recording too, because I think there were a lot of good little nuggets in there. So
And thanks, Ruth, for setting this up. Like the prompts of having these events and of basically asking questions on the Slack group as well. They serve well to nudge things along. So thank you.
You're welcome. It's my pleasure.
yeah,
For
Ruth's
sure.
like the mortar that holds everything. Ruth is really the reason this exists. Let's be real.
No, that is
I
not
get way
true.
too much credit.
Oh, by the
Cool.
way, guys, I have a question. Now that you're talking about this, like
Yes.
dynamic between Ruth and Nick, because I've been doing a lot of like personality testing and like getting to know myself through things like numerology and things like that. So maybe I'd be interested in, I don't know, maybe if we all do like a 16, I don't know if you guys know the 16 personality test.
Liz.
If
Well,
we all
I
do,
Enneagram,
then,
but close
you
enough.
know, see how we complement each other or like.
So here's an idea for that. If you go into Slack and you create a oh, Cam's coming in right as we're ending the call, but that's okay. Cam, we're just about, well, we'll wait until he connects. Cam, how you doing, brother? We're literally just wrapping up the call, but we recorded it all, so you can tune into the recording and hear kind of what everyone said. Cedric, a good way to address that would be if you create a Slack channel and
Okay.
name it like personality inventory or whatever you want to call it, and then invite everyone on this call to that. And if you post a link to where we can go in there, because I've done a lot of those, but it only really works if everyone's on board and wants to kind of compare, and it's a really good self-reflection tool. So if you want to put that into Slack and invite us all, then we can all go in, take it, and maybe give our results, and then kind of compare it with each other. I think that would be a really good exercise.
Nice. I'll do that then.
Perfect.
Write it down.
Cam, you want to introduce yourself? We're just about to end the call, but if you want to introduce yourself and maybe say who you are, where you're from, and what brought you to this community, and sort of what do you get out of it? Maybe in 5 minutes.
Okay, sure. I'm Cam Lessie. I'm from Winnipeg, Manitoba. I was introduced to the Foot Collective through a foot nerd named Tim Nanasi. What I get out of what I get out of this community is some support, some learning. I'm excited to try and restart the Foot Nerd program this year.
Cool.
And really hunker down and try and reclaim that responsibility for my health. It's been very challenging this past year or so, and whatever's been going on. But I think, restrictions have finally lifted enough that I'm able to get to the gym again, and I've been trying to make some more steps towards the right direction. I started my own daily journal that was prior to the work log, inspired by the proof of work log, but I've started that as well too. So
good for you, man.
I'm eager to try and try and commit to things and try and establish some more friendships or relationships with some of the other foot nerds, and be a contributor to what we got going on here. I have an immense amount of respect for the leaders that we have here, Nick and Ruth, and maybe there's some more leaders that I don't see that are behind the scenes, but I look up to you guys a lot. I see you guys as mentors and as good role models for a way of living and empowering people. So just kudos to you guys on that front.
Cool, man. Well, thanks for being part of this. I think it's funny, you might look to us as role models, but I look at every single nerd as a role model, because the way they live their lives shows me a template that maybe I haven't explored, and that might actually be a better option. So I think, but the only way we can be role models is if we share, right?
Yeah.
Like if we're living our own life in our own little silo, no one knows what we're doing. No one can be inspired by what we're doing or learn from it. So I think this whole notion of going on our own little journeys, on our own missions, and doing experiments and doing the work and discovering things, but then always making sure to come back and put it out there to the community to be witnessed, and also to let people know that we are a witness to their experiences as well, because we're going to learn from each other. But I think also, like at the start of this call, Cam, we talked about how like health is a team sport. The only way we can accomplish like really meaningful progress in our health process, I think, is through others, right? We have to do the work, but without others, there's nobody to really build meaning into what we're doing. No one to like observe and understand what we're doing. And I think all of us have come here because we've committed to something hard, which is make a commitment to our health. And I love that you're just ready to start again, because that's the beautiful thing about health, is like every 24 hours is a begin again moment, right? It doesn't matter like what was done in the past or what you didn't do yesterday. It's like, what am I going to do today? What software update am I going to do today? And that is the work. So thanks for being part of it.
And I just want to piggyback on what Nick is saying and appreciate like all the appreciation. But what's interesting about what Nick and I do is we weave together what we're doing from every single interaction that we have behind the scenes with you all. So like when we finally get in front of you, it's really not us, it's you. Am I right, Nick? So
You're right.
I think one of the most important things that Nick is saying there is like, it's really so important to be seen. Like we have to, and I know that we're doing this on a certain level, but there are 182 nerds, I think. And when we can all like contribute something, I mean, I think Nick and I, essentially what we do is we just try to bring all the input that people are having, the experiences, and then try to like put them into a concise lesson or something, but it really is not us, it's you. And so the more, like he's saying, I just want to reiterate, the more that we can get from you, feedback, and where you're like that part needs like some tweaking, can we do that? Like the more that you feel empowered that this is all of our program and not just like people, we're all leading is what I want to say. We're all leading. It's just that Nick and I are then translating that into what becomes the next evolution.
You got it. Well said. Cool, folks. Well, I wish you all a wonderful Saturday and weekend.
Yes.
And I look forward to the next call. I don't know what a good cadence is for this, but maybe we can plug in some suggestions on Slack and see what people have available. I'm very excited for the Bozeman gathering. P.S.
Yes.
That's now in my brain. Can't
Yes.
undo that. So yeah, if you want to, Melinda, if you want to chat with Ruth, and we can, I think it doesn't matter how far ahead it is, scheduling something makes it real. And so if we start to get an idea of like, what would this look like? What's a good time of year? And gives you more time to be like, these things need to be done. These are things that everyone can do when they come here. You have a volunteer workforce to help you build out this amazing vision that you seem to have. So yeah, I'm stoked to hear updates on that. And yeah.
One last very important thing is that Nick and I, we hosted this all Zoom, this all nerd call. And so we won't be hosting the next one. So be thinking if you want to team up with a partner to host the next one, right, Nikki Pop?
Yep, that's a good call. Because yeah, we can all get used to kind of going through and we'll all organize it together. But I think someone initiating it, putting out a Zoom link, putting out, some stems of like things we can talk about.
Yep.
People will self-select, right? Like if people aren't
Yep.
into the topics that were listed, they might not tune in. If they're not available, they won't tune in. But I know that a lot of people are itching to kind of connect with nerds. And I don't know if, like, I think we need to do more of this. Not too much of it. And it's never mandatory. Like, I don't want people to feel bad if they can't tune in. But I think people want to. We just have to make more opportunities to do it. So,
Yep.
Yep.
So 100% support on the back end. If you have any questions or you need anything, just message us on Slack.
you got it. Much love
Love
to
you
everyone.
guys.
Have a
Yep.
great weekend. Ciao.
Yeah, my God. Bye. Love you guys.
Bye-bye.